Hello out there, my name is Scott Beejan and welcome to Intermission. This is a podcast where we talk about art, music, viruses, face masks, getting fat, being indoors, watching TV, hopefully being productive. And today I'm very, very happy to welcome Sage Francis. Sage, thanks so much for being part of this podcast.
Thanks for having me, Scotty.
It's really good to talk to you, as always.
I'm very knowledgeable about all the things you just mentioned, so this is perfect.
Oh, well, there we go. This is going to be a great interview. I can't wait.
Yeah, I think we're all experts on those subject matters at this point.
I think so. I think we've had basically a crash course in the last, has it been a month?
Yeah, a little over a month.
Yeah, it's been about a month.
I remember when things started really getting, I guess, when people had to start questioning what their future might look like was in early March, and that was still a little too late. I think that's why we might be seeing a prolonged quarantine, but yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, early March, and I was wondering where were you? What was the last event you did, or maybe you weren't doing an event close to when this all started? But where were you last when it started to ramp up? What were you up to?
I was so I had learned that my wife was pregnant in the very beginning of the year, and when that happened, I went into a frenzy to book as many shows as possible because I knew I wouldn't be able to travel or perform once the baby came or once she was in her third trimester. So right. I spent the first couple, or I guess maybe the first full month booking my entire year of shows, and then a month later I was canceling every single one of them, just trying to get my money back on flights that I had purchased and hotels, and I did. I finally successfully got all the money back from the hotels, but the flights have been a pain in the butt.
I found a similar thing from airline to airline. They tend to, some are a little bit more agreeable to the whole situation. But how that's just wild that you had this frenzy of booking, and then no sooner did you have to basically turn around and back out of everything. It's not like you were booked out for 6 months or something. Like you had just made that push and then you had to pull out of everything. That sucks. Yeah,
I was booked right up until August, and it was about 30 shows, and I was feeling pretty comfortable about that because I knew there's going to be a lot of new expenses, and also with the lack of being able to make money after the baby was born. So I was not excited to leave. I never am. I'm really not much for travel, but that is how I make money. And as a performer, that's what you rely on in order to even sell merchandise most of the time. So it really, I was already hunkered down. I was hunkered down to book everything because I did it all myself. I didn't go through a booking agent or anything. I just did everything myself to maximize income. And so it just is it just was one of those of course moments. It's like, of course this happened right now.
Of course, there's a global pandemic when you're expecting your first child, right?
Yeah. It's not the best time to really be going in and out of hospitals, but
and congratulations, by the way,
Thank you.
On expecting and you have a sort of a new, relatively new family, and
we're already raising two young girls. They're upstairs right now getting homeschooled, and I get to enjoy a little privacy in my studio room in the basement. But that's kind of how we've been living for the past 6 weeks. It's really, to be honest, it's not, my life doesn't change all that much because I'm really a homebody and I don't really care to go out all that often. But it is, I can see it eating away at other people, and I have some friends who are incredibly social, and I know that it's eating them away. So we'll see how this ends up affecting society as a whole in our local communities and all. Who knows what stores are going to, like, restaurants or venues will be open once this is over with. There's a lot of unknowns that we're all dealing with still. It's basically complete uncertainty, which is scary and maybe a little exciting in a weird way. I've talked with some people about what could happen and the possibilities, but ultimately the uncertainty of it all is, as a performer, as a fellow performer who relies on this for
for income, it's a little tricky. It's a little just, I guess, a little disconcerting. You know, what is the future going to hold? And am I, you know, maybe music as a profession is not quite going to be the main focus anymore. Maybe there's something else. And I'm sure you've had these thoughts. Everyone has had these thoughts. Although, I mean, I suppose I rely more on my strictly performing, whereas you have had a lot of success recording, collaborating with people and whatnot. So it's slightly different. I'm lucky to have different streams of revenue, but I think both of us are at an age now where kind of it isn't the worst thing in the world to have our hand forced and have to figure out a way to make money from not traveling everywhere. Yeah. Honestly, I've been trying to do that for a while now, but I just know where the most money comes from, and it's tough to turn that down when the opportunities are out there. But now that they're not, like I said, my hand's forced, and I'm totally in limbo as to where I think I should be dedicating my time and resources in order to ensure a safe and secure future for the whole family. And it is a bit scary. It is disconcerting. And I know I'm one of many people who feel that same thing. So all I know I can do here is just, I'm going to continue to go through the mountains of files and material that have been piling up in my studio over the past 2 decades and make sense of that. Yes. So I'll turn more into an archivist rather than I don't know what else. Yeah. It is a good time to go through all the old stuff. I mean, I'm sure, like myself, you have hard drives and possibly some iOmega zip drives if we can go way back. Would that have who the hell knows
I got all that.
Material? Yeah, sure, I do too. It's piles of it. It's insane. So I guess that's one.
I have rehearsals of ours on. What was those mini discs? Those mini.
The mini disc recorders.
Yeah.
Wow, that I would love to hear that. And I mean, if I keep digging, and I will, I'm sure I have some stuff like that too. Possibly some VHS stuff or some kind of camcorder footage. Who knows what we'll find. So I guess that is a good time to discuss. You know, you and I go back to, I want to say 1998. Does that sound right to you?
I think it was 97. I think 97. Oh no, you're right, because you weren't part of the band at first, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So AOI, Artificial Intelligence, started up at the University of Rhode Island in 97, and we didn't even have a drummer at first. We were just going off a 4-track where I had break beats playing or something like that, and then we went through a couple different drummers. Did you go to URI? I can't even remember how I met you.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I graduated from URI, but I was living, I think when we started, you and I were both living in dorms, because I do recall walking to your dorm at some point.
Okay.
So I think that we were both on campus, and then I subsequently just lived off campus. But yeah, that was where I went to school.
I lived in dorms for 4 years.
Oh wow!
That's how different and weird my life has become, because I can't imagine doing that at this point. I was a very social person around those times and loved being in the company of a bunch of random people, and that is somehow my joy of that has totally withered away over the years.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of understand that. Because you were working at RIU, the campus radio station, so I guess that sort of made sense for you to be, in addition to you just being a social butterfly at the time, that made sense for you to be close by to the station. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I went to URI was so I could get on the radio station, and I was, I just wanted to hop on everyone's radio shows, do my own radio show, and it was the only way to get my material out there. I wanted to be known as a rapper. So, I would just jump on people's radio shows and freestyle. And that's how Matt Zimmerman, I believe that's how he found out who I was. He ended up kind of spearheading the AOI thing. He played upright bass, and he was like, let's put together a band, like a rap band. And I was not crazy about the idea of rapping over live instruments. I was a very I would say I was a traditionalist when it came to hip hop, and I wanted samples and I wanted fake drums, and it's right. That was what I had listened to my whole life. And but that was a wonderful opportunity to grow as an artist and as a performer and start working with or collaborating with people, which I had never really done up until that point. So and luckily I had heaps and heaps of songs already written without music to go with them. So I think AOI kicked off real fast because we already had, all they had to do, and I'm not saying it's easy, but all they had to do is fill in the gaps, like, oh, there's already verse and chorus. What do we do during these parts? And then, and then by the time you came around, I'm guessing we had already done a few shows, but nothing. You came about, I think when you came about, when we first started playing outside of Rhode Island, where we would get shows at in Maine or play at like the Skinny.
I have that a bootleg, I guess.
Yeah. Well, those shows, whenever I listen back at those, they're really bad. Like we were not good. We're not good on tape. We were good live though. I think their energy was just so frantic. And just to see live instruments on stage for a hip hop show was a novelty of sorts at that time. And I can remember, I just learned so much. I learned how to perform on stage. I learned I didn't even think I knew what monitors were when we were doing shows together. I had no idea why there would be speakers pointed at me. So...
Right, pointing at basically at your microphone.
Yeah, so I can hear myself.
Feedback squeals. Yeah, right.
So I would always turn the speakers around. I would turn the monitors around at the crowd. Like, why the hell do I need to hear myself? And I would blow out my vocals every show, not really understanding the science of how all that worked. But I would say a slow learning curve for me in that respect.
Sure, and I guess playing. That's another thing about playing as a rapper, playing with a live band backing you up. It's a little bit different than having a backing track or a DJ, in the sense that there's just a lot of noise, and the way you project your voice as a rapper is maybe different than a singer would. I don't know the mechanics of it per se.
I do, because I had to deal with blown out vocals and nodules and polyps. And when I went to the doctor, eventually they showed me, when you rap, your vocal cords are basically clapping together. When you sing and hold notes, they're not opening and closing. They're staying at a certain length apart from one another. So it gives them a chance to rest. So when you rap, it's just a lot of abuse on your vocal cords, and fighting over live instruments at the same time. That's a recipe for disaster. And it wasn't just because I've played with a lot of bands since AOI, and whether I was rapping over a band or prearranged beats, it really all matters how I rest and treat my voice. But I think I did build a little bit of disdain for rapping over live instruments, because I blamed a lot of my issues and pain on you.
Yeah.
You, Scott.
Yeah, me specifically, yeah. Being the loudest, most sort of transient pounding member, yeah. Yeah, that's a challenge, and I know that you did play with other live musicians, after AOI disbanded or just kind of fizzled out, but once I feel like, I guess I'm not familiar with all the live musicians you played with, but at some point you decided to basically just settle on being, a solo artist with very minimal backup. Is that right?
Yeah, it's certainly my preference. It's why I was able to travel all over the world early on. Obviously, traveling with a group of people means a lot more expenses and a lot more splitting profits. And the only way I was able to live off my music was I was fortunate enough to be able to put on a one-man show and do it convincingly, not like a karaoke set, but make it like people. I wanted to do it so well that people who came to the show would at first be thrown back by the fact that I didn't even have a DJ, and then forget all about that by the time the show was over, and just be enthralled by the journey I took them on through words and performance styles. And that kind of, that's what I dedicated myself to for the bulk of my adulthood. And now I'm realizing I'm transitioning out of that that reality. It's not what I want to focus on anymore, but I do have to accept that it's over for me to really hang up the hat. And I think that's what I have to do. Not that I will never perform again, but it's certainly not going to be my focus and what I plan entire years around.
Right. So do you mean specifically because of the situation with the pandemic now, or do you mean even pre-COVID-19? This was
even pre-coronavirus. That's okay. Just knowing that my domestic situation and raising children and not wanting. It's tough to be away from, your loved ones.
It is.
I mean, I had family before this, but my family was so scattered. It kind of was a perfect storm for me, where when I left, it's not like I was leaving too much behind other than my cats. And I just needed to make sure someone would take care of my cats. So it didn't matter how long I was away. I didn't miss anything at home except for my cats. And it's not like that anymore. And I'm also, I'm 43 years old. It's I can't continue to do that. And I've known this for a long time. It's just, it's tough. It's really tough to switch gears if this has been your reality for as long as it's been mine and yours. I mean, how do you just give up what you've dedicated yourself to for so long? It's a tough one.
I know. And in talking with a few people about this and about all the career implications of the current situation, and just kind of taking a look back and realizing that I personally, and you probably even more so, I can say I probably spent the past half of my life as, or close to that, as a professional musician. Certainly more than like as a performer, far longer than that. But for this to be the bread and butter here, the sole source of income, it's been a lot of years. And yeah, it just knowing that there's something different down the road is a weird feeling. And as I said before, there's a bit of excitement to it too, because like you, I was already entertaining the notion of, okay, let's figure out what the next chapter is for me.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, what is your next chapter? What do you think?
I don't know. I never want to stop performing, but in terms of how widespread and how many shows a year we play, not to mention what the landscape will look like when this all gets back to quote unquote normal, of course. There's so many factors, but I think that it would be nice to maybe not travel as much. Like you, I have a family and I miss them and I want to be home more. I have a degree, a computer science degree that I'm still very interested in that type of stuff.
What does that do? What do you do with that?
That's it. Well, when you have a degree from 2002, not much. You dig up your LinkedIn password and you get back on that shit and you're like, who do I know? Do I even have a skill set anymore? So, but I envision that in some way there could be, I guess, a blending of whatever my tech skills are and my musical experience that I've gathered through the years, somehow making that work for me. But it's honestly open-ended. If you have any ideas, by all means, let me know.
Okay, I'll have to think about that.
If you're looking for a driver, I can drive really well. I've done a lot of driving over the past 20 years.
I will say, if for being involved in the music industry as long as you have and as I have, we pick up a lot of different skills along the way that can be used in all different types of fields. So it's not like we're at a lack of skill sets. It's just really, where are we going to dedicate?
I mean, have you ever had that sort of flight of fancy that, oh wow, I could actually be a truck driver because I'm really good at driving on highways.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that idea. Not that I would want that life, but I feel like I would be qualified. I know where all the good stops are.
Of course. Those are that's the main thing I'm going to miss from the road. That's really, I am not in love with performing. I am not in love with interacting with people. I do like the parts of travel that I like is having the opportunity to read when I'm on a plane and all the different places to stop and eat. And just see something unique on the highway.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I toured with Grunge from Grand Buffet, and he always fantasized about just being a truck driver. He would talk about it all the time. Can you hear me? Oh, someone's calling my phone. Sorry, I thought it cut off.
That's okay. It's just interesting that of all the skill set, we joke in our band that we're basically, 15% musicians and 85% professional drivers because of all the driving you freaking do, man. Anything. I could be a travel agent, I could be a booking agent. Yes.
I could develop people's, I could run people's social media accounts, like if Fritos wants me to jump on their Twitter and create woke Fritos, I could do that.
I can only hope that Fritos is listening right now.
Well, they better come.
Because what a pivot that would be.
They all take turns. Like the most recent one was Steakums.
For what?
Steakums got really woke on Twitter recently.
Oh. I didn't even know Steakums was a thing, to be honest with you. So
yeah,
the fact that they're now woke Steakums is a whole thing.
Yeah, they found their opportunity. That's how they went viral, and a lot of people started remembering Steakums. And apparently, the account is run by David Koresh's son.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. There's a lot of weird shit out there that we can. I don't have the connects like he has, but if Fritos is listening, I don't even like Fritos. I guess that's why I pick them.
What is the go-to sitting in the van, whiling away the hours, snacking food for you?
Oh boy. Well, I'm usually driving, so I'm not a big snacker while I'm driving.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm snacking now. I'm definitely packing on the pounds now that we're on lockdown here. But when I'm driving and going out there, I'll sample everything. I like going. In the middle of the country on the West Coast, there's so much good food out there. But I'm not I don't grab a bag of chips and I save that for the hotel room, I guess.
Oh yeah, all right. I've always been a sucker for those red hot chips that you get. The ones that, I don't know if they had them in your high school cafeteria, but those damn red hot chips, man, there's just a place in my heart, and I can't. I walk by them in the gas station, and I say no. I leave with a bag. There's no other way.
I am bad. I do eat a lot of really bad food, but that's why I could work for those companies, and I could wake them up online and earn my keep. So
I guess to jump back to where your career has come up until the very present day, Epic Beardmen, I guess that's the highest profile stuff of yours that I've seen over the past few years, and it seems like from what I've heard of it, it sounds cool. It's a cool concept, and you've performed it overseas and everywhere. Can you tell me a bit about it?
Yeah, Epic Beardmen basically consists of me and B Dolan. B Dolan is another rapper from Rhode Island, and I had started working with him in the early 2000s in the spoken word circuit, and he was kind of rapping on the low, didn't really want people to know about his rap stuff, and I took him on tour with me in 2005 where he helped drive and work the merch booth, and then eventually in 2008, we started touring together where he would open up. And then almost all the tours that I was doing and a lot of the shows outside of tours would always have B. Dolan opening up, and that started feeling weird because I love traveling with them, and we work really well. Sorry, now I am starting to hear feedback. We work really well together, and I was like, we should do a group project so that when we do shows, it's not just you opening up and me headlining. It just felt weird after a while. And it also, the fact that he's a monster performer and I would always have to follow up his monster act was starting to piss me off. DIYMFS, do it! DIYMFS, do it! DIYMFS, do it! Do it your motherfucking self! Yo, B, you on cue? I woke up on cue. Yo, Sage, you on cue? I'm always on cue. Yo, B, you on cue? You know I'm on cue. Yo, Swap, tell these fools what they got to do. I was like, let's combine efforts. But again, it was weird to me that not as many people were aware of him as there should have been, especially for as long as we had toured together and we were putting out his albums on Strange Famous Records. So I run a record label as well. So that's another thing that kind of keeps me in the loop and connects me with several different types of artists. Sure. So I was like, if we do a project together, maybe it'll help twofold. One, more people will become aware of you and the label, and then you won't have to feel like you're just an opener because he's not. And so that's what we did. We dedicated ourselves to this project, which was difficult because, again, I'm not much of a collaborative artist. I've done so much solo stuff over the years, and I creatively I like to just work alone. So that material took a long time to come together. He's the same way. He's not a collaborative artist. And we're similar in a lot of ways, but it's just we would clash horns from time to time over how certain things should be. And I would say in 2017 or 2018 is when we 2018 is when we did the first world tour as Epic Beard Men, where we played the whole US and some of Canada, I think, and then we would hop over to the UK, and we even played like Lithuania and some Scandinavian countries and we played South Korea, but for 2 years straight. For 2 years straight, we did the Epic Beardmen stuff, and I personally made a whole lot less money than I would have on the solo shows, which would have been fine, but it's another of course moment where I met my wife on the very first show of the very first Epic Beardmen tour. And
no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
That's how it worked out. We did a free show in Connecticut, and I connected with her there. We didn't even really talk. We took a picture together, and then her sister shared the picture with me on Twitter the next day. And I was infatuated with this woman. I was like, hey, how can I get in touch with her? And then we stayed in touch every single day since. Wow. And now I live in Connecticut. I had to move from my childhood home in Rhode Island. We still run the record label out of the house in Rhode Island, but it's been a lot of traveling back and forth.
The same house there.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. Yeah. So you have to travel back and forth. You're in Eastern Connecticut, right? Not too far, right?
New London. So I'm next to the casinos. I'm next to Mohegan.
Okay, yeah. So a little bit of a hike to go back and forth.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not touring, so I don't mind the long drives from time to time.
Right. So is the Epic Beardmen project still? Is it just active? Is it dormant? Is it? I would say it's dormant now. Okay. It's not totally done, but he's certainly been focusing on solo material since late last year, and so have I. And I've been working on a solo album for the past 2+ years. He's working on different movie scripts. He actually had a big hand in a movie called The Vault, which came out last year. It was based in Rhode Island about a big money heist in the 70s, or a bank robbery, something of that sort. But he's got his hand in all different pots. He's very busy. Yeah. Right.
And he was the best man at my wedding. And then I was like, okay, now we never get to hang out again after this, so let's make the most of it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, that's that's really. I'm really happy for you that you found this person. And I'm not talking about B. Dolan. I mean your wife. I'm happy that you found her and that everything seems to be falling in place, as it were, and that's just really cool, man.
Yeah, thank you. And it is another big life switch. It's just I have to switch a lot of gears because all this time, I mean, I've had a lot of long-term relationships, but it took someone like her for me to acknowledge that, okay, I definitely want to be with this person forever. I trust her that much, and she just makes me feel that special way. And now I have to hang up a lot of things that I guess kind of defined me, or maybe were just part of what I thought was what I was made of. And yeah, you can't. I lived my whole life with not really thinking I'd ever have kids or even get married, and now all of a sudden that's my whole new reality. And adjusting to that is not the easiest thing, especially leaving that house that I lived in for my whole life.
I know. You know? Yeah.
But yeah, I'm rolling with it. I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to make. I lived alone for so long, so now living in a house full of women or girls is like, man, it took me a second to really I got to take some deep breaths sometimes and say, oh, okay, this is a whole new world.
The solo stuff you do now, are you in and out of a studio, or are you largely doing this stuff home recording style?
My home recording system was at my house in Rhode Island. So once I dismantled that, and that's how I recorded my last several albums, especially once Chris Warren moved away. He was my binky when it comes to getting the best sound, Yeah. I really miss Chris's input and help with everything. I just saw him in San Diego. Probably it was the last show that I played before the coronavirus hit, and I just saw him and his wife, and I hadn't in a couple years. It was so great to see them, and yeah, I mean, he's killing it doing what he's doing. And I didn't realize that you continued to work with him for that long. I don't know. We recorded at his studio way back in the day. So yeah, I mean, that's how I met him. So meeting him through the AOI stuff, and then I worked with him on every album right up until 2007. The last thing I did with him was Human the Death Dance, where he engineered. He's just a master with sound. He's a mad sound scientist.
Yeah.
And once he moved away, I had this other guy I work with, Dan Sawyer, who's he set up a recording. Well, I bought all this. Chris told me what to buy. Chris was like, you need this compressor. This kind of mic works well for you. And then Dan Sawyer came over and set up all the stuff in my room. He was like, all right, well, I think this is the best we can get it. And then I just recorded everything from that room ever since. And because I'm not a very tech savvy guy. I'm not. I have a difficult time with buttons and levers and wires and cords, and it's just not my forte. But so now that I moved everything into this room sitting in right now, it's not set up. That's why it took me so long to I figured I opened up this hand recorder that I bought 2 years ago thinking I'd start my own podcast, and I learned how to connect it to my Logic Pro, and now that's what I'm doing. So yeah, once I have, I think, 10 hours of absolute quiet time, I'll be able to reset up everything here and record out of the house. As long as the girls end up going back to school, because if they're not at school, it's noise all the time here. So I can't really do anything too professional sounding until that happens.
Yeah, I found the same thing at home. I'm at my band's rehearsal space now. I tried to make an attempt to do something at the house, but it just isn't a reliable what I even considered is because I have a USB mic that basically I can plug into a laptop. I even considered sitting out in my truck and just plugging it in and just having that be my sound booth. And I haven't tried that yet, but I actually think it's a pretty good idea. So in a pinch, if I can't get over to the space and I need to talk to somebody or record something, that's going to be my my driveway studio, I guess.
That works. That's basically what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. What anything, I guess, last thing, and going to ask this of everyone, is what are you reading, watching, listening to? What would you, anything you could recommend to people out there that are obviously have maybe a bit more time on their hands?
Oh boy. I'm actually, I'm working on different projects, so I'm not spending a lot of time watching TV, except after dinner and when the girls go to bed and I have about an hour to myself, and maybe my wife gets to keep her eyes open for a little while. I binge watch 90 Day Fiance.
Oh, okay.
So I've kind of been really locked into 90 Day Fiance.
All right.
It's a terrible guilty pleasure, and it gives me just enough to really. Actually, no. One thing I did get into is Community, that show by Dan Harmon, the guy who does Rick and Morty. That's a wonderful, wonderful show. Super good.
I've heard, and that's definitely on my short list. And my daughter she's of the age where she can kind of dig. She's binged The Office, and she's in that kind of sense of humor. So I feel like that might be the next step for her.
I think she would love that.
And that's something we could dig into together. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah. It's a very, I love, the clever writing, and it's stuff like that I can watch 1 or 2 episodes and then I'm in bed. Again, my whole life is so flipped upside down from what I've known for the rest of my adulthood. All of a sudden I'm in bed by 10 p.m. and I'm waking up at 6 or 7 and dealing with domestic stuff, and I'm trying to sneak in as much work as I can in the meantime. And I am afforded that. I'm lucky that, my wife can do the homeschooling stuff while I try to figure out how to connect 2 laptops. I just feel like such a dummy. I need, I got the YouTube tutorials open at all times, and it's working out. I'll make sense of this, and I'll have a book by the end of it all. I'll have a new album. I'll have a whole series of mixtapes. I'll have, I'll learn guitar. Yeah. I'll probably write a
guitar.
Song. Yeah.
Learn guitar.
I got 4 of them sitting right next to me. They're waiting. You? Yeah.
Well, we have to jam, man. Come on. What are we waiting for?
Just got to learn chords first.
Well, that's one logical first step, I would say.
All I need is
learn a chord.
3
or
chords.
3 chords. So all you need. It's really all you need.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm smart.
Hey, thank you so much for being a part of this, Sage. I really appreciate it.
Well, nice talking to you, man.
This is a new, project for me, a new endeavor, and being able to talk to you as one of my first guests is a real treat, and it's always good catching up with you. I'm glad everything's going well, and we'll keep in touch, and hopefully we can talk next time and discuss how it all was during the pandemic, how it all was during the virus time, and we can look on to what's next.
Okay, I'm going to get you on my podcast next.
Do it. Yeah. If I can do it, man, you can most certainly do it. You've been using your voice to speak professionally and successfully far longer than I have, and I feel like, I don't know, this feels pretty fun and pretty cool. I think you'd be a great host. Well,
you'll be a great guest then. Shout out to your whole family. Tell them I said what's up.
Indeed. Same to you.
I love you.
Love you too, brother.
Bye.
Bye.